Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to Brenda G. And it's weird because it looks like I've been shadow banned, which is weird. But literally, my camera took a shit, and then I broke my phone earlier in the week. So we're like, I guess this is the way it bees. It's 2020 AF.
Yeah,
but Brenda,
me
how are you?
too. I'm doing good. It's early. It's the morning. How are you?
Good, good. I mean, aside from the camera thing, I'm alive. I've got breath, and it seems like you're in the mood to celebrate the holidays. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So, I mean, obviously, we met through Jaws Fuller, and she is awesome and a fearless women's MMA champion, winning that title in Mexico, which is awesome. But I guess how did you get into like combat sports?
So, I thought long and hard about this question. It it was really something, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to it. It's something that comes from within. I was always crabby or just feeling like I wasn't pushing myself physically, and I needed something to channel that energy. And a bunch of my friends like Jaws, like Hector, they did jujitsu, and I hit them up one day and I was like, hey, like, where do you guys train, or what is this about? And they're like, oh, just come to class. And I'm like, you know what, I will. And a year later, here I am.
That's brilliant. Now I want to know, like, did you know what like jujitsu was, or MMA, or any sort of like grappling, like judo, any of that?
Well, I know what normal people know, which is like the UFC and MMA style. I did have an idea that I wanted to focus in on a discipline. And my original dojo that I would go to, it was like a dual one. It had judo and jujitsu, so I got a little taste of both. But I really enjoyed jujitsu the most.
And
Um,
no, go ahead and elaborate.
now it's just a lot of people say this, but it definitely translates into multiple points of your life. It owns in on your patience. Your team. You have to be a team player. Let's see, you as an individual, your body, mind, soul connection. I feel like it's something that everyone has to experience.
No, it seems like, and most people, and it's weird to say in 2020 when people are catching things of, odd sorts. But I mean, you got bit by the jiu-jitsu bug.
Hmm. Yeah. I tell people all the time, if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably, I don't know, I wouldn't be a good person.
Yeah, and no, and that's the crazy thing when people think about, like, whether it be fighting or self defense and stuff. To people kind of outside, the like our community, it
Hmm.
seems like, it's again like, oh, you might be a criminal, or like you're gonna, like, get in a fight at the bar, like those type of things. And it's just like, no, like, humans are kind of, it's we were never meant to be like the top of the food chain in terms of, like, imagine if like a whale could walk, right? Or, like, they're so much smarter, or a dolphin, or rather, jaguars and cheetahs are, basically faster than us. Gorillas, some similar makeup, but way stronger than us. Like, so we were
Hmm.
never meant, like, we're average in terms of the human, like, species and everything, but we still have the need to basically, um like,
Be
let
active.
out our primal uh usefulness.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're meant to be sedentary. I don't feel like as a species we're supposed to be just sitting on a couch watching TV, walking everywhere. I really do feel like we've we've come away from being our natural selves, which is to be active, to be lean, um, just to be physically fit. And this definitely taps into that. And some of us have it more than others, or at least the pull to want to be active. And I don't know, I got the bug.
That's awesome. Now, in terms of like, because you said that you were at a gym that had both jujitsu and judo. So, what was it about judo? I mean, jujitsu that basically made you kind of turn away from judo?
Hmm. It's kind of ironic actually, but when it comes to jujitsu, I still get the little butterflies before I roll with someone or if I'm going to class. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but I think it's that it like sparks my fight or flight that actually like makes me attracted to it because it's something that my body is like, whoa, what's going on? Are you really going to put yourself in like, physical harm again? And I'm like, yep, yes I am.
No, well, that's again. I love that you mentioned the fight or flight, theory, and in times of combat, that is something that obviously, you know, uh, gets brought to the forefront, right? In terms of
Mhm.
like what should I do in this situation and whatever, and you might do things in times of peril that you wouldn't do. Oh, sitting in an office or what have you. But it's cool to engage that in a, I guess, a like a supportive setting, like a gym,
Right.
with other people that might be of similar sizes, bigger, smaller, all body types, all genders, all sexual orientation, and like it's almost like problem solving. This is like chess, like with humans, it's like, oh, I've got this, you've got that, and then it might change. Like, oh, I might have eaten that burrito on the way to class and everything, and like, oh, I don't feel as great. And
Mhm.
that person might feel better, but they beat me like 2 days ago and whatever. And it's just like it's extreme problem solving.
Right. I think that also like a big takeaway from that is you definitely become more aware of your body. I know a lot of people say that, oh, I've had these injuries now, I've been doing this for so long. But like just the fact that we're aware. Um, just recently someone of mine found out that they had like a tear or something in their body and they wouldn't have known. I think the fact that we're active, we're actually more connected to our body parts, and we know when something's a little bit off. And I'm one of those people that I like knowing how my body's doing. So that's really nice too. I find the beauty in the stuff that others might not when it comes to fighting.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, the awareness, right? And even like if you're, it's that part of class where like it's not the instruction, you get to just roll with your teammates, or going to an open mat of sorts, and you're like, if there's too many people on the mat, like you almost like everybody starts to roll small, or like I'll sit this one out, like like you become a little bit more aware of not just like your body, but also the person that you're rolling with.
Yeah, that's true. And then tying that into like from what I advocate for, which is like DV and just overall people just wanting to look for a fight and hurt other individuals. That awareness becomes really big because let's say I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a year and I get into a relationship. Um, Back then, if they would have pushed me or something, I would have been like, whoa, but it wouldn't be a big deal. Now that I do jiu-jitsu, now that I know that you can really harm someone and that awareness, that kind of for me translates into don't you touch me, and it's that confidence also that's built in with the martial arts, and I feel that a lot more women definitely need to try it out.
No, I'm a big proponent, and like everybody needs to train jujitsu. Like
Mhm.
because the thing about it, you could be the most like, you know, like professional striker, whether it be karate or boxing, Muay Thai, or whatever, or an amateur, or somebody, like a soccer mom or dad, basically just doing it just to lose, holiday weight, right? But the one thing that is established in those two like situations is the fact that strikers need to develop range, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you don't if you have somebody, like kind of attacking you from behind or anything, you don't necessarily have range. Or if you get pushed on your back, or you're everything that it doesn't matter how many years you've hit bags and knocked out sparring partners and everything like that. Again, all of your weapons basically get nullified once you're on the ground. You can't punch up, like it doesn't work that way. But with jiu-jitsu, it doesn't you don't have to be the stronger person. It could all be about leverage. One of the I mean, I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, I essentially got sent flying, tossed by like 140-pound female at the time, and now and landing at the feet of my wife, and she's just like, she has her eyes rolled, like, what are
Nice.
you doing? You're supposed to be the protector and whatever. Now, I will say that the female is the raging panda Julia Avila, who's now in the UFC. But still, I mean, you don't it's all a game of leverage, and whether leveraging one strength and making it your strength, and I think it's cool that I feel like every man, woman, child's should take some sort of jujitsu, because again, you were talking about that confidence, right? You
Yeah.
hear about things about, I mean, people getting depressed, and especially in 2020 has been a hellacious year for a lot of people.
Right.
So it's just like, to get that confidence back, like if I feel alone, you've never felt more of a communal kind of aspect to your nature than literally like unceremoniously separating your friends from their body parts and putting them to sleep, or them to sleep. But I mean, again, there's that community, and not to say that
Yeah.
depression doesn't happen even if you're in jiu-jitsu, but it mitigates a lot less.
Yeah. Definitely. There are times where I feel really bad and it's just not my day. And I want to skip jujitsu. And then I sort of learn to force myself to go. And then once I'm there, it's like a light switch. It just instantly washes over me. Like I feel so much better. And then I leave the class feeling great. And it definitely shows me the impact that letting out some energy and choking at your friends feels.
Yeah, man, and that's the thing. Where else in the world can you essentially, again, maim your friends, right?
Mhm.
And then uh they'll basically go like, oh, here's what I did, blah blah blah, and then you can maim somebody else, and then everybody, like, again, they slap hands, whatever, and it's just go, and yeah, like, to me, it's amazing.
Yeah. And going back to the whole range thing, um, that's what I love about the MMA, is because it's essentially like a bunch of people with different types of ranges, different types of disciplines, and then they're just going all out. And I think you're right. Even us as like grapplers, I would definitely be like, we should have some type of boxing as well. I mean, obviously it doesn't fit into just jujitsu, but it's good to be well rounded. And it definitely for me, I like the whole approach that I can learn anything from anyone, or at least something from everyone, and it just brings you to like become a more well rounded person.
Yeah, absolutely. The knowledge, seeking, and that's,
Mm.
so sometimes, getting your butt handed to you. That is the greatest motivator of all, right? And then you kind of
Mhm.
figure out, like, oh, what to do about that person next time, to kind of almost exploit, again, some of their strengths, maybe even their weaknesses, and like, you might pull a sweep from a white belt, right? A fellow white belt. Or and then you might, pull a transition from, a brown, purple, or, a blue belt, right? Or even a black belt, obviously a black belt, right? So I mean, it's the thing. It's just like you almost it becomes almost like Sims, if you've ever played that game, where like everybody's like, little bubbles are going off, and you're like, oh, that person has that and whatever, and you want to interact with that because you wanted to see like what I can use and implement in my game plan.
Right. And that's, I don't know, I find all of that amazing. And it is like chess. You definitely have to try in jiu-jitsu. Like, I think, who said this? I forgot who said it, but they're like, you can't lie in jiu-jitsu. You just can't. It exposes everything about you.
No, 1000%. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about combat sports. It's like, whether it be jujitsu, judo, boxing, kumite, Muay Thai, karate, and I mean, you can kind of fake karate. I've seen those like bullshido videos, or the McDojo videos. Like you can kind of fake in karate, but I mean, a lot of it, it has to do with the mat. And once you step onto the mat,
Hmm.
that is the ultimate truth teller, right? Like,
Yep.
where you could come in from another gym. I remember when I first started jujitsu, like one of an affiliate from another country, from Canada, came in because we were essentially training for like an IBJJF tournament, in Long Beach. And they came in, they were like, oh, like we came a couple days early, let's train, right? And I was like, I'm still a no stripe white belt, right? But I found myself like tearing through their blue belts, even some of their purple belts. Whereas like me, like I couldn't a blue belt in my like own gym. Like there
Hmm.
was no way. It's a tough time. Like I would like have my tongue stuck out like a long red necktie. When I'm battling them, but then I would like tear through other affiliates, and I'm like, oh whoa, there's levels to this, like
Hmm.
it's different.
Yeah. And like, I know, I heard that before. And why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so hard for things to have like some sort of like, I know every sensei or every coach has a different like ranking system of how to like promote them and stuff, but why do you think it can be that way? Like, how can a no stripe white belt um just submit a purple belt?
So that euphemism of like, whether you're seeing like a UFC fight or whatever, like and anybody in any sort of like sports competition, they say that euphemism, there's levels to this,
Mhm.
right? And I think it's that, right? You could be a no stripe white belt in Oklahoma, right? A no stripe jiu-jitsu white belt in Oklahoma, but what is Oklahoma known for? Like big time wrestlers, right? And yes, that person might be like no stripe white belt or whatever, or even what the the coach or sensei, what they require of belt tests. Some people, there's different ways to kind of peel an onion, so to speak, right? So
Yeah.
it could be like, oh, this person gives out, this coach or sensei gives out um, stripes or belt rankings on just how you rank in the gym. They don't consider competition, their students being in competition. So like there's that. Then there's like competition based promotions where like like if you win a gold at a Pan Am's or a IBJJF or a like a medal at Naga or one of the big time competitions,
Mhm.
you step off the podium and then you might be promoted on the spot, right? There's that. There's like, if it's old school Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, if you're over 35, like you don't ascend higher than a blue belt. Like that's the Brazilian way. If you're 35, whether you've been doing it for your entire life or you just stepped on at like on your 34 and a half birthday, but like 35 is the cutoff. If you don't jump, you're going to be a white belt forever, right? So I think it's different methodologies, right? And then also where that school is, the realtors, they say location, 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 right? But I mean, it is absolutely true, right? Or,
Right.
the Pacific Northwest, they might be a little bit like, you know, imagine they have to go through like rain and all that to get to class, right? That does something to somebody in like the Northeast, or I mean, as we're seeing kind of like the influx of like the Russian Federation, right? Like Chechnya and Russia and whatever. Those are people that deal with extreme cold, right? So
Mhm.
like again, they are going through like hell and high water to literally go to grappling class, right? So like that's going to be an advantage whether it's spoken about or not. That's going to be an advantage. So like uh, to me, that's what I figure, and that's what I see, covering combat sports for the last 4 years. Like it's this, like you might think that somebody has this and on paper you'll do MMA math all day, but then like when it gets into the ring, like there's variables of like, oh, they've never been in front of people on lights before. They've only just been in a gym, and like all of these like variables. And that's why that extreme problem solving, because every bit of the variable, is why John Jones as a no stripe white belt could basically submit Dan Henderson, right? Pride FC veteran, has been doing some sort of grappling since he was like 16. But John Jones is just lankier and just grittier and whatever. And he's not bound to those like traditional, well, at the time, he wasn't bound to those traditional jujitsu like slap hands or whatever. Like he was doing more catch wrestling, like grinding your nose and like all of the stuff that would get you kicked out of tournaments. Like that, and gyms, like he was doing that, but it worked. And he was able to use his leverage because he is long and lanky, and he found a way to exploit it, and he does that in fights.
Yeah. Not to mention the altitude.
Yeah, so yeah, so that's why, I mean, that's my feeling about it. But I mean, what say you? I mean, I know it's still early in your jiu-jitsu journey, but like have you been in those like situations where you're at an open mat or somebody from a different school kind of drops in and it's just like, oh, different.
Well, yeah. I mean, just recently, I switched over to the dojo that or the training center that Jaws goes to. And these are a bunch of guys and many guys that I used to train with in the beginning of the year, and there is a difference. I think in this case, it was a level of training intensity. The guys that I train with now and the girls, they're a lot more focused on getting better. So they bring their A game when it comes to rolling. And whereas, the one I came from, I think it was more of like a fitness thing or something. Some of them did train to compete, but for the most part it wasn't they weren't, I don't want to say athletes, but they weren't actively pursuing some type of either UFC, MMA, or they were doing consistent tournaments, and I think that also plays along with it. It's like, how consistent are you going to be? How intense? How much time are you willing to commit? Are you working out outside of class? Things like that. Are you coming to open mat? So.
No, 100%. And I mean, you're kind of in that San Diego area, right? So, I mean, the I guess the red herring, the elephant in the room is the fact that like Camp Pendleton is, you know, is there. You've got, Navy Yards and everything. So you've got like an active military that are there, whether you know it or not, I mean, sometimes it's the dead giveaway where everybody's wearing crew cuts and you're like, oh, okay, like, you know, and have like some sort of like branch of, military tattoo, beyond the rash guard or whatever. But like, I mean, but again, those are things that are a little bit. I mean, those are one of those variables where, like, again, the location, the why, and that's the coolest thing, for me as somebody who covers the sport, whether it be MMA, pro wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever the case may be, everybody's why is different. Some people are like, oh, just to lose weight. Some people are like, I was bullied. Some people are like, oh, I really want to compete on something. Like I was a former athlete in a different sport, and guess what? Like my knees blew out there, but somebody basically was like, hey, why don't you try jiu-jitsu? Some people might be in law enforcement or whatever and want to get a little bit of an edge. Like these all of these things are variables, right? And that's just like the first surface. And then like, oh, this one is bigger. This person has a low center of gravity. This person, like they know how to use their angles. This person is longer. They're short, but they're long. Like,
Mhm.
and those variables, I think it's so fascinating. But also the why. The why is the best one, because like that is in the countless hundreds of interviews that I've done thus far. It's like everybody's why is different. I don't think I've ever got the same why twice. And
Okay.
yeah.
That's cool. Well, for me, the why would be I value strength. And that's physical, mental, spiritual strength. I think that definitely drives me in my life. And so part of that is I read a ton, fiction, nonfiction. I talk to people because I want to have like that mental strength and try to be a better person, try to be strong for myself. And that includes beating, moments of depression and stuff like that. I value physical strength, and not just like brute strength, but how are you going to use the muscle that you have? And like going back to being how we're more part of nature, that's also having strength to survive the elements, strength to be able to obtain your own food, and so that's something that I value. And the why for me is to become stronger mentally, spiritually, and physically. And like I mentioned before, jujitsu just encompasses all that in it, and it definitely plays into different elements of your life.
No, 100%. And I have to ask, right?
Mhm.
So obviously, like that first class, like it's rough, but I mean, that there's something there, right? I mean, you pretty much get ragdolled by everyone in class, right? But what at what point did you start to figure it out? Like maybe you might have gotten a coach's teaching of the day, or you might have like made a transition where you wouldn't have in sessions prior, or you might have even submitted somebody, and you're like, oh, well, where did that come from? So like, where was that kind of watershed moment where like, oh, I think I'm starting to get this?
Um, okay, so I think for me it was when, like, how everyone starts off as a spazzy white belt, and then you have like that blue belt or that purple belt that is just really good at rolling with you and kind of helping you, but also giving you that pressure, like being a good uke and like just um giving you that. And so when I realized that I was doing that for fellow white belts that started out new, that's when I was like, oh, like this is what it means to have that balance, and be a little bit better than someone else or more knowledgeable, and then not hurting them.
No, 1000%. Yeah, and again, that's that. There's levels to this, and and that's why, like, finding a good gym, a good environment that is conducive to learning, because there are some um there are some gyms, right? We're not naming names, but they're like they'll only let you get so far before like they're kind of pressuring you towards like, oh, you should compete, or
Mm,
like, oh, maybe you shouldn't roll with that person, or like, because that person, whether you know it or not, might be like their homegrown, like like golden child, so to speak, right? And if you kind of come in with, again, you might have a lower center of gravity, you might just naturally know how to just leverage your power, and or might have taken like maybe a half a season of wrestling, right? And then you basically handle their prize blue belt and whatever. And it's just like, Okay, wait, like, so it's that's why it's crucial, not only just to be in this journey, but also to have a environment that's conducive to learning, that doesn't kind of shut you out, that treats everyone the same. Because, like, again, there can be like indifferences in the community, and it's just like it sucks when that happens.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I've never experienced in either gyms that I never experienced people just kind of pressuring and all that. Like, of course, there's individuals who want to show off and kind of crank a little bit, even if they are a higher belt. But um, no, like I really had really good experience in jujitsu so far, so I'm grateful. And my teammates now, they're just so great at teaching. Even if I'm rolling, I still feel that pressure. I still feel that push. But I feel like I'm learning. I don't feel like I'm just being beaten down every day.
No, that's crucial. That's absolutely crucial because, like, especially if a person were to, basically come into this
Hmm.
because they were bullied, right? And then, you know
Yeah.
they once you get, again, you get ragdolled your first day, and you could almost feel like, oh, I'm in that same situation again, right? So, and in the human nature, right, there's a fragility in it, right, in our experience, right? So if you have somebody in a fragile state of mind, body, and spirit, you know like, getting mauled might not be conducive. So, like, again, it's just like the coach, the coach is so important, because not only are they preparing you and disseminating information from their journey, in combat sports, and whether they, fought professionally, or as an amateur, or are just like a, ardent jujitsu, head, or they might, be somebody of a military background or a wrestling background that got into it, like, those things, right? But then
Right.
also the fact that now you have all of these people from different walks of life, and this is really the beauty of combat sports, where you literally have everybody from every walk of life, sexual orientation, political affiliation, whatever, right? Different body types, different ages, and everything like that. And now, as the coach, you have to be able to manage all of that, and basically, uh, create a conducive environment, and a fruitful environment for everyone to kind of, come to the water, and drink, right? So
Right.
that's why, finding a good coach is like super crucial.
Yeah, and you know what? Coach Bryce definitely sets the tone. And what I like about him the most is that he actively devises time to try to help out all levels, and he tries to keep it to where the purple belts, the blue belts aren't getting bored because he's trying to teach the white belts something, and I think that's great. There are a lot of coaches out there who only pay attention to certain groups, or the majority of the time too, and they might not do it on purpose, but then it leaves the other groups feeling unfulfilled. And I think that's the whole point of being in a combat sport. At least for me, I want to feel fulfilled. I want to feel like I gave it my all, like someone's investing the time in me.
No, that's absolutely important, and shout out
Mhm.
to coach for doing that, because it's a delicate balance, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
it is. It is. And especially when you have a large class too. That's
Yeah,
a
absolutely. Yeah,
challenge.
that's the catch 22, right? Where obviously, you're doing it, and you want the teaching to grow, you want more and more people to be fulfilled, right? And then, like, oh, now we're like, I mean, if somebody basically sweeps somebody, like, oh, we're at the wall, or so, like, that's the thing. It's like when you have a great environment, and then, like, everybody wants to be a part of it, right? Like, who
Right.
wouldn't want to be a part of it? And then, as it gets growing, you still want that connection with your, whether it be your core students, or even your, the newer people that have just come in, that you want them to feel welcomed as well, because, again, that, you can't be a first a second time, right? So you
Yeah.
are essentially this person's first coach or teacher, and what you do or don't do is going to kind of um, I want to say like dictate their experience through jujitsu, from here on out, whether they're at your gym or another.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? Like touching on that too, I think that it's important that you have a sense of camaraderie with your teammates too. I know there's the people that come in every once in a while. There's the new people, and we have a tendency to want to crush any new people that are coming in, and I feel like that's so ironic because of how close knit the core people or even everyone else can be with each other. Like I said, jujitsu is just all inclusive and it's amazing. I will say though that it probably would be hard for someone who has like social anxiety at first, because since we're so active, we're not really talking as much, and that could kind of set someone apart at first. But then that's what open mats are for, you know. You tend to talk a little bit more, build those bonds and relationships, and I feel that I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited for this journey to continue. It's definitely for life.
That's awesome. And again, there's things that you learn about people, right? Where like if somebody's good for you, you're like, oh man, like I want to hang out with that person. Like you and Jaws are friends,
Hmm.
right? Like
We're
you know,
family.
you're family, right? So and that's something that is awesome, right? But then there are also like, oh man, if this person is like, grinding their elbow in the back of my neck, and they might not wash their gi,
Hmm.
they might not wash their gi and like rub it across your forehead, and I might get like staph or ringworm or whatever. Like those are people like, wow, if nobody's here, nobody's really watching, right? And they're doing this might not be the person that I want to hang out with, like outside of it, because if this is their behavior when nobody's watching, imagine when there's other people around.
Right. Yeah. That's intense for sure. But you know what? As apart from that, I want to talk about Jaws actually. I've known her for years and years. Her brother and I were in fifth grade together, so I've known her for a really long time. And I've known that she does MMA, and she was kind of always like, "Let's do it," and I'm just like, "All right." But the cool part is that we're so close and we're family outside of the gym, and to have an additional like way of life and experiencing with her, and now like training with her is is the ultimate. To have someone that you're so close with, and then have them close with you in jujitsu, and I really feel like I don't know. That's I had to say that because that is like the coolest thing ever.
No, 1000%. Now, I mean, I want to ask, like, how, I mean, obviously you had the connection through her brother, right? But like, I mean, Jaws is someone who conveys great strength, right?
Oh
So
my
like,
god.
right? So I mean, at what point did you know, like, hey, there's something different about her?
Um, I've always known. It's just oh man, whew, she. Let's say it this way. You know when you go home and you tell your mom about how you met this amazing man, and he's all of that. She's that for me. Like I would go home and I'd be like, "Oh my god, mom, my friend, this, and that." She has these values and this openness to be there for people, and I can't describe it. It's like when there's some people that I meet, that are nice and they're kind and they're always calm, and I'm always like, like, like they are this all the way, but I don't buy it. And with her, it's not like that. With her, you know that there's fire behind her. Like what you see is what you get, and she's just like all inclusive, amazing person with spirit, and she's a warrior, and she's willing to understand and get to know you and like see your point of view, but then also be like, okay, but what about this? And she definitely has qualities that I have in myself, and that she's just awesome, dude. Like we'll go hiking potato chip, and we're processing about certain things that are happening in our lives, and we're overcoming barriers, mental barriers together. And to have a friend like that who I can process with and actually accomplish things in my head and physically, like that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean you're literally covering all the bases, right? Like that's essentially what you want out of people, and I mean what you yourself want to be to others in the community around you,
Right.
right? So like it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah. So my phone is 3%.
Okay, no, we'll wrap this up, but uh thank you for joining us here. Where can people find you on social media?
So I'm Sugar Donuts. Two S's in sugar, two D's in or yeah, two D's in donuts, something like that. And that's it. I mean, you guys are more than welcome to add me. I also work for the San Diego Center for Children. I'm doing a fundraiser that I'll have on my Instagram to make our gates handicap accessible. I'm chairing the project, so support if you can.
Go ahead and support. Hell yes. But thank you, Brenda, for joining us here. Thank you guys for joining us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, we warmly encourage you to like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods channel. Right? Yeah, I mean, Brenda, you're subscribed, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Dang right. And if you don't take Brenda's word for it or mine, here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang.
Hey,
All
this
right.
is Zeta
Thank
Zhang.
you.
Make sure you subscribe.